If you feel strong enough, can you tell me about Ailuin, your guardian?
I think I should, even though it will be painful. In our language, he is called Kundo, or even sometimes Heru, which means Lord. But I feel I need to take you back to when he was a youngling first. He and his brother Nalerin grew up happily in the village of Roamur, in the province of Breatia. This was in spite of the country of Freyonne being under the iron fist of the tyrant Morden. As youths, they were left to fend for themselves, as my Nostari, my grandparents, were both fighting in the Dathrin at the time. They were in fact among the first to oppose Morden's rule, although many more joined later. But alas, the brothers were soon to suffer a terrible loss. Both of their parents were lost in the same battle, the Dagonanayath, the Battle of Lamentation, a crippling defeat that cost the lives of many resistance fighters. In response, my guardian and his brother made the decision to become part of the movement to end this reign of terror. Ailuin had become a healer by that time, and Nalerin a skilled warrior. Alas, this meant that while the one was away fighting on the front line, the other was made to remain in order to tend to those who had either become ill or were casualties of war. Early in the campaign, Nalerin fell in love with a young shield maiden by the name of Lyra, and they were soon married. Not long after that, I was born, bringing a ray of light into my parents' dark existence. A year later, my sister Alea was born, but it seemed that fate would deal a cruel blow just afterwards. Alea was barely 6 months old when my father and mother were embroiled in a fierce battle, the Daga Bregadur, the Battle of Wildfire, a battle that lasted 5 whole days and during which many were slain and more sorely wounded. The battle also ended in a terrible defeat and cost many lives, including those of both my parents.
If you want, we can stop and continue later.
No, I feel strong enough to continue. Ailuin was devastated when he received the news of his Honig, his little brother, and Beatrice, sister-in-law's demise. For many days he remained in his room and slept very little at night. He did not have the heart to go anywhere near Nalerin's quarters. It was as if he feared that his ghost would be haunting that place. At last he found the strength to go to his brother's room, and there he found a letter on the still unmade bed. He picked it up and began to read. It was as though Nalerin somehow knew what lay ahead, for this is what was written. To my dear brother, I shall be leaving with my darling wife Lyra, and I fear for our very lives. The fray that awaits us is, I am afraid, the worst yet in our campaign to overthrow this despot that has ravaged our land. The forces he has amassed at Roulon are vast, and we are sorely outnumbered. But we must take this fortified town, lest he uses it to his advantage, and the whole province is lost. My beloved Ailuin, if this battle should indeed go ill, then I have but one orison. If I should fall, then I implore you to do all you can to aid my widow in raising our 2 precious children. If, and I shudder to even consider this, both of us are slain, then my plea is that you take both of them as your own children and raise them as best you can. I have faith in your kind and compassionate heart, and I know you will do what is best for them. Although I dread what awaits me, if Vura shines her ray of hope upon us, or if Ethis has decreed that we shall be spared, then we may see each other again. But if we should perish in the field of battle, then may Ulhina wreak her worst upon our enemies, and may our souls awaken once more in the land of Iluv. May the Aya bless us all, brother. I remain your devoted brother, Nalerin.
Is that the letter hanging on that wall?
It is. My guardian kept it and had it framed.
Would you like to take a break?
No. The tale actually becomes brighter from here, and anyway, it is just about at the end. My guardian gave a eulogy at the funeral that was only held 3 weeks later, after Freyonne at last was taken back by a new resistance force that came from Antossis. His emotions took hold of him so that he was forced to leave the temple halfway through his speech to gather himself before he could continue. A year after the battle at Freyonne, and because of a new zeal that had gripped our land, Morden and his followers were defeated at the Dagor Gelui, the Battle of the Triumphant, and my father and mother could at last be laid to rest in the halls of the fallen, a place of great honor for our people. After my parents' death, Alea and I had been placed under the care of my mother's sister, Yerdra. Now that the war was over, my guardian saw to it that he fulfilled his brother's last request. He came to Antossis, where we were living, and officially adopted us as his own. This was made easier when he met and married a fellow healer by the name of Elisa. Those were among the happiest days of our lives. Ailuin's kindness and compassionate heart helped to heal the pain we both suffered at the loss of our parents, and Elisa truly became a mother to us. There were still times when we grieved, but both our guardians were always there to comfort us and make us smile again. One never forgets, and the pain still remains, but with sufficient support and love, one can learn to live with it. When I was 20, Alea married one of the lads from the neighborhood. I was at a school for writers at the time and had not given relationships, let alone marriage, a single thought. Kundo had asked me one day when I was thinking of settling down, as he called it, and I promised him that I would consider it once I had graduated, which happened a year and a half later.
Well, it seems that you kept your promise because we met 2 years after you graduated and a year later were married.
Another day I will not forget. Ailuin was so proud when he accompanied me at the ceremony. I could see his eyes shining and tears trickling down his face.
Well, he wasn't the only one in tears. You looked so beautiful that day. I couldn't stop thinking that I was the luckiest man alive. It was then that I fully understood what was meant by, once one's eyes have seen the splendor of the elves, all other beauty seems to fade.
You looked very handsome yourself. Not long after that, my guardian witnessed the birth of his first Indio, grandchild, a scion. We had named him Aiduin Jasin, although he became known by his second name. His Haru, grandfather, was overjoyed. He had always wanted a male child, even though, because Elisa was unable to have children herself, he had been denied his wish. Now it had been fulfilled. 2 years passed until his second grandchild was welcomed into the world. This time a seal, who was named Sindra Baden. She became the apple of her grandfather's eye, although he still had a very special place in his heart for Jasin. It had been many years since I saw my Heru as happy and content as he was then. It would be a long wait before another granddaughter was born. This was because I had developed complications while I carried my first child, which needed to be resolved before I could bear another child. 13 years after Sindra was born, I discovered that at last I was expecting again. On the 15th day of Vires, the 4th month in our calendar, our third child was born. It was a Yelda, a daughter. Her hair was almost black, which influenced the name that we gave her, which was Rena, meaning raven.
I know this last part is the hardest. Are you sure you want to talk about it now? We can always do this later.
No, I would rather finish, even though this may be the toughest part. For 4 years, my Konda was truly content. He had a loving partner and 3 grandchildren who he adored and doted on. But then, it seems, his age caught up with him. He suddenly became gravely ill. and was rushed into hospital as an emergency. When physicians examined him, they discovered that he was bleeding internally. He endured 3 surgeries to try and repair the damage, but every time the bleeding would start up again. After the 3rd unsuccessful operation, my Heru declared that he did not wish to have any more. In fact, the only treatment he accepted was to relieve him from the almost constant pain he suffered. 3 days later, the Aya came and took him away. The nurse that discovered that he had passed said that he even had a slight smile on his face, as though he felt relieved. All the pain and suffering that had gone before was no more, and at last he was at peace. At his funeral, there were many that spoke of him as a hero, and he was given the title Thalion na Freyonne, Hero of Freyonne. One of his closest friends gave the official eulogy, after which the casket containing his ashes was carried out and placed in a grave with his parents on his left and his beloved brother on his right.
If you enjoy our content, please press like and subscribe as well.